I always believed that the foundation of any family was trust. Not love, not tradition, but trust. Without it, everything crumbles. You raise a child with values, you pour your life into their well-being, and you hope. No, you trust that they'll carry your love with them, even when they make mistakes. My name is Robert. I'm 56 years old. I've been a single father for most of my daughter's life. Her name is Emily. She's 25 now, engaged to a fine young man, and for years I've saved up every spare dollar to make sure her wedding day would be unforgettable. It was my gift to her, the culmination of every birthday missed, every overtime shift worked, every vacation I passed up. I never expected perfection from Emily. Just honesty. But one day, everything shattered with a single sentence. One whispered accusation that turned my entire world upside down. Dad cheated on Mom with the maid. The maid. Rosa. A woman who had worked in our home for over a decade. Kind, respectful, trustworthy. She was never just an employee, she was family. And in that moment, with that lie, Emily ripped through the very core of who I was. Not just as a father, but as a man. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I didn't even defend myself. I just felt cold. This is the story of how a lie broke something sacred. How I responded, not with rage, but with silence. And how, quietly, I took away the one thing my daughter was counting on. Her wedding fund. Emily came into my life when I was just 31. Her mother, Rachel, and I were college sweethearts. But life had other plans. When Emily was 5, Rachel passed away after a long battle with cancer. It was sudden, it was cruel, and it left a hole in both of us that never truly closed. From that moment on, I wasn't just a father, I became everything. The morning wake-up call, the hairbrusher, the lunch packer, the bedtime storyteller. I worked long hours, sometimes juggling 2 jobs, just to keep the roof over our heads and give Emily a life where she never felt the weight of our loss. I remember her first dance recital. She was 8. Her pink tutu was a size too big, and she kept pulling it up mid-performance. But when the music played, she looked right at me in the audience and smiled like the world made sense again. That moment kept me going through years of loneliness, exhaustion, and sacrifice. As she got older, things didn't get easier. Teenage years came with distance. Doors slammed. Words were exchanged that still sting in the back of my mind. But no matter how far she drifted, I was there. Every late-night call. Every broken heart. Every failure at school. I was her rock. And when she met Daniel, her fiancé, I saw something in her eyes I hadn't seen in years: hope. Light. The spark of love. I may have had reservations, every father does, but I kept them quiet. She deserved happiness. So I started saving. I cut back on every unnecessary expense. I canceled a long dream fishing trip to Alaska. I sold my vintage record collection, the one thing I truly kept for myself. Also, I could give her a wedding she'd never forget. Because that's what love looks like when you're a father. It's not flashy. It's not poetic. It's silent, steady, and invisible. Until someone decides to question your integrity, and with it, everything you ever gave. Rosa came into our lives when Emily was still in grade school. I hired her during one of the most chaotic chapters of my life. I was juggling double shifts and trying to help Emily adjust to school without her mother. I didn't need just a cleaner. I needed help. Stability. Someone I could trust with the 2 most sacred things in my world, my daughter and my home. Rosa wasn't flashy. She was soft-spoken, respectful, and always kind. She never treated her job like a burden, she cared. She remembered Emily's favorite snacks, folded her clothes just the way she liked, and even stayed late when Emily had the flu and I had no one else. Over the years, Rosa became more than an employee. She became a quiet presence, like the hum of a refrigerator, always there, always consistent. She'd sometimes bring tamales during the holidays, and once, when my car broke down, she lent me her husband's truck without even being asked. There was never a trace of impropriety. Never a glance, a word, or a moment that crossed any lines. Rosa was like a sister to me, and a second mother to Emily. Emily used to adore her. When she was little, she'd draw Rosa pictures and leave them on her pillow. She'd talk to her about school, about boys, about everything. Rosa listened with the patience only a woman of great strength possesses. And never once did she complain, not even when Emily started treating her coldly as a teenager, as so many do when they become self-conscious and prideful. Rosa stayed. Through our messes, through our moods, through our seasons of joy and sorrow, she stayed. And so when I heard Emily say those words, that I had betrayed her mother, with Rosa, my knees nearly gave out. Not just because it was false. but because she aimed her lie at the one person who had done nothing but care for her from the shadows. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. Emily had come over for lunch. She'd been busy with wedding planning, flower arrangements, venue deposits, seating charts. We were sitting at the table when I mentioned that Rosa had stopped by earlier in the week to drop off a box of old Christmas decorations she found in the attic. That's when Emily froze. Her smile faded. She put her fork down and looked me in the eye, cold, sharp, and unfamiliar. "Are you still seeing her?" I blinked. "What?" "Rosa," she said flatly. "You've been sleeping with her for years." Mom knew. The silence that followed was unbearable. My ears rang. My vision blurred. For a moment, I thought I had misheard her, that maybe she was joking, or that I was imagining the words. But the look on her face told me otherwise. "Emily," I said, barely able to form words, "where is this coming from?" She crossed her arms. "I overheard things when I was younger. Late-night conversations. Mom crying in the bathroom. I always knew. And now that Rosa's still around, it confirms everything." I wanted to scream. To shout. To throw the table over and demand she take it back. But I didn't. Instead, I sat there. Frozen. Like a man watching a building collapse, one he spent decades constructing, now being reduced to rubble by the very person he built it for. "Do you really believe that about me?" I finally asked. She didn't answer. She just stood up, grabbed her purse, and walked out the door. No hug. No goodbye. Just silence. And in that silence, I realized something far more painful than the accusation itself. My daughter wasn't interested in the truth. She had already made up her mind. The days that followed were heavy. Heavier than I expected. Emily stopped returning my calls. I texted her twice, once to ask if we could talk, once just to say I loved her. Both were left unread. No response. Nothing. A week later, Daniel, her fiancé, called me. His voice was tense, clipped. He said he didn't want to get in the middle of family issues, but that Emily was deeply hurt and needed space. I asked him if she told him what she said, the lie. He paused, then said quietly, "She told me everything." And just like that, the seed she planted began to grow in the minds of others. Rosa found out not long after. She showed up to my doorstep in tears. I had never seen her cry before. Her hands were shaking. She couldn't even get the words out at first. But eventually, she told me she heard from a neighbor that Emily was spreading the story around, even telling relatives, framing Rosa as some kind of homewrecker who had ruined the family. Rosa begged me to clear her name. The pain in her eyes was unbearable. This wasn't just about a false accusation, it was about dignity, legacy, and betrayal. She'd given over 10 years of her life to this household, and now her reputation was being dragged through the dirt. By a girl she once braided hair for. I wanted to defend her. Publicly. Loudly. To send messages to every friend and family member who might have heard the lie and scream the truth into their faces. But I didn't. Because every time I picked up my phone, or opened an email, or sat down to write something, I remembered the last time I saw Emily's face. How certain she looked. How unmoved she was. And I realized something even darker. She didn't care if it was true. She wanted it to be true, or needed it to be. Maybe to justify some old resentment. Maybe to give her mother's death a villain. Maybe because seeing me as flawed made her feel stronger. I'll never know. But what I did know was this. There was no more wedding fund. Not after that. Not anymore. I couldn't let it rest. Not because I needed to be vindicated, but because something didn't sit right. Emily didn't just accuse me. She believed it. Deep down, that's what haunted me. That after everything, every bedtime story, every scraped knee I kissed, every sleepless night I spent worrying about her future, she could still throw a lie like that and walk away without hesitation. I started going through old emails, photos, letters from Rachel, anything that might explain this warped memory Emily claimed to have. I even found some of Rachel's old journals tucked away in the attic. Most were filled with sketches, little notes about Emily's childhood, and recipes she wanted to try one day. But in one entry, dated 6 months before her death, I found something. It wasn't a confession or an accusation. It was a reflection. Sometimes I wonder if Emily will be okay without me. Robert tries so hard, but the weight of everything is breaking him. He's too proud to say it, but I see it. Rosa has been such a comfort. She takes care of the house, brings warmth. I hope Emily doesn't grow up resenting her. Or confusing care with betrayal. It stopped me cold. Rachel knew. She saw how Rosa helped hold our home together. And even as she was fading away, she feared this exact moment, That Emily would twist kindness into scandal, compassion into conspiracy. This wasn't about a noise in the night or a suspicion Emily had overheard. This was grief, unresolved, weaponized, and pointed at the wrong person. I sat there, staring at Rachel's handwriting, and I felt an ache deeper than anything I'd felt in years. She was gone. And now, so was Emily. Not physically, but emotionally. Spiritually. Grief had stolen my wife. And now, it had poisoned my daughter's heart. But now, at least, I had clarity. And that gave me the strength to do what needed to be done next. Rosa came over one evening after I called and asked if we could talk, really talk, without fear, without filters. She sat at the kitchen table, the same place she used to help Emily with homework while I prepared dinner after work. There was something deeply painful about the familiarity of it all, now drowned in suspicion and shame. I slid the journal page across the table. Rachel's handwriting. Her words. Rosa read it slowly. Her lips trembled, but she didn't cry. She just nodded, almost like she had been waiting for someone to see the truth in writing. "I never crossed that line, Mr. Robert," she said. She always called me that, even after all these years. "Never. Your wife knew that. You knew that. But Emily. I think she always hated that I was still here after her mother was gone." Her voice didn't carry resentment. Only sadness. She told me how, when Rachel was in her final months, Rosa stayed late without charging for the extra hours. She'd help bathe her, read to her, clean up after the endless pills and the nausea. She saw Rachel at her most human, and Rachel let her. Maybe Emily, just a child at the time, didn't understand that intimacy. Maybe seeing Rosa fill that emotional space felt like betrayal, even though Rosa never intended it that way. "She needed someone to be angry at," Rosa said softly. "You were too strong. I was too quiet." So the lie. It made her feel in control. I didn't have the words to respond. Just a weight in my chest that wouldn't move. I apologized, not just for the accusation, but for putting Rosa in a position where she had to carry the burden of my daughter's grief. She shook her head. "You gave me a place in this home. I won't let a lie take away what was real." And with that, she stood up. Dignified. Wounded, but not broken. As she left, I knew two things. I would never allow Rosa's name to be smeared again. Emily would have to face the consequences of what she had done, not out of punishment, but out of truth. Because some lessons aren't taught with anger. They're taught with silence. It took me 2 weeks to gather the courage. Not because I was afraid of Emily, but because I wasn't sure who I'd be speaking to. The daughter I raised? Or the version of her shaped by bitterness, distance, and years of unspoken grief? When she finally agreed to meet, it was in a quiet corner of a coffee shop. Not our home. Not hers. Neutral ground, and that, in itself, said everything. She walked in, poised and guarded. No hug. No smile. I didn't waste time. "I found one of your mother's journals," I said. "She wrote about Rosa. About everything." Emily's face twitched. But she stayed quiet. She knew Rosa helped care for her when she was dying. She worried you'd grow up misunderstanding that. And she was right. Still, no words. "You need to know," I continued, "there was never anything between Rosa and me. Ever. Not in thought, not in action. She served this family with loyalty and love. Your mother trusted her. I trusted her. And you. You turned her into a villain." Emily's eyes welled, but she didn't cry. "Not yet. I heard things when I was little," she finally said. "I thought I heard things. Mom crying. Whispers. And Rosa was always there." I connected the dots. Maybe I wanted to connect them. I leaned forward. "I don't blame you for grieving, Emily. I don't blame you for hurting. But I do blame you for letting that pain become cruelty. You didn't ask questions. You just made accusations. Loud ones." Her tears came then, silent at first. She looked away, ashamed. "I wanted someone to be responsible," she whispered. "Someone to blame for why everything fell apart." I nodded slowly. "I understand that," I said. "But you made your choice. And I've made mine." She looked back at me, confusion in her eyes. I paused, then spoke as calmly as I could. "The wedding fund is gone." There was a long pause after I said it. Emily stared at me like she didn't quite understand. Like the words hadn't landed yet. "What do you mean?" she asked, voice shaky. "I cancelled it," I repeated. "The account is closed. The savings are no longer set aside for the wedding." Her mouth parted slightly, eyes wide. "But, Dad, I was counting on that. We already made down payments. The dress, venue, flowers. You promised." I also promised myself, I said, that I would not fund a future built on a lie. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't angry. My voice was steady, the kind of calm that comes only after you've been broken and stitched yourself back together. I sacrificed everything for you, I continued. Years of my life. And I did it with love. I never wanted repayment. I never needed gratitude. But I did expect honesty. I expected respect. She looked stunned. Angry. Then panicked. I made a mistake. I was hurt, and I lashed out. But you can't take it all away because of one mistake. One? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Emily, you didn't just make a false accusation. You told other people. You humiliated Rosa. You slandered my name. And you never once came to me like an adult. You didn't ask. You didn't listen. You just declared me guilty. Tears now. Real ones. I thought you'd always be there, she said, her voice small. No matter what I did. And I am here, I replied. But not in the way you want. Not in the way that lets you hurt people without consequence. The truth is, the money could have still been there. I didn't need it. I had no plan for it beyond her wedding. But this wasn't about dollars. It was about values. About what we teach the people we love when they cross lines that should never be crossed. So I made the silent decision weeks earlier. I canceled the fund. Quietly. Without drama. Without warning. Because sometimes, silence is the most powerful teacher of all. The days after our conversation were eerily quiet. Emily didn't call. She didn't text. She went dark. I imagined she was scrambling, trying to rearrange fenders, explaining to Daniel what had happened without admitting the full truth. Maybe she was hoping I'd change my mind if she gave me space. Or maybe she was angry. Truly angry for the first time, not at Rosa, not at her late mother, but at herself. I didn't reach out either. I wanted to, God knows I wanted to, but I knew that if I did, the message I had sent would dissolve. This wasn't about holding a grudge. It was about holding the line. And the silence? It was heavy. I missed her. I missed the sound of her laugh from years ago. I missed seeing her name pop up on my phone with silly questions or stories from her day. I missed the girl who once asked me if clouds had names and believed I knew the answer. But silence has a way of revealing truth, not just to others, but to ourselves. In that quiet, I realized how much I had allowed myself to carry over the years. How often I had forgiven without conversation. How many small transgressions I swept under the rug in the name of keeping peace. And how maybe, just maybe, that's why the bigger lie was so easy for her to tell. She'd never learned what a boundary really meant. And now, with the silence between us stretching like a canyon, she was finally feeling the edge of one. Daniel reached out once. A brief message, Emily's been distant. I don't know what's going on between you two, but I hope you can fix it. I didn't respond. Not out of pettiness, but because I knew this wasn't something I could fix. This was Emily's mountain to climb now. She had to look at her reflection and decide if she liked who she saw. Until then, I would stay here. Waiting. Not with open arms, but with an open door. It was 3 weeks later when I heard from her again. Not a phone call. Not a visit. An email. Just 6 lines. I can't believe you actually did it. You humiliated me. Do you even care what this has done to my relationship? Daniel is furious. I hope you're happy. Don't bother responding. I stared at the screen for a long time, my finger hovering over the reply button. But I didn't press it. Because that message didn't come from a place of reflection, it came from pride. Wounded, lashing pride. The kind that has to blame someone else before it can even begin to heal. And yet, there was something else there. Something beneath the fury. She finally believed me. She wouldn't have sent that message if she still thought I was guilty. Her anger wasn't about what I had done. It was about what I had taken away. Reality had caught up. And with it came regret, though she didn't say the word, I could feel it lingering between the lines. The panic of losing not just money, not just convenience, but me. The one person who had stood beside her all her life, who had sacrificed without keeping score. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care, but because I cared too much to offer a soft place to land before she truly understood the damage she'd done. She needed to sit with it. To face the ache of consequences. And I needed her to know that real love has limits. I heard from Rosa a few days after. She said she received an anonymous bouquet of flowers at her apartment. No card. No note. Just white lilies, Rachel's favorite. We both knew who sent them. A small gesture. A first step. But I wasn't ready to forgive yet. Not because I wanted to hold power, but because forgiveness, Real forgiveness isn't given out of pity. It's earned through humility. And Emily still had a ways to go. It's strange, the way a single life can unravel decades of love. Not all at once, but slowly, thread by thread. Trust doesn't explode. It deteriorates. Quietly. In the moments when truth is replaced by convenience. When assumptions are louder than conversations. When pain is left to fester, undisturbed. I've spent many nights lying awake, staring at the ceiling, asking myself the same question over and over. Where did I go wrong? Did I love her too softly? Did I fail to teach her that love and accountability must walk hand in hand? Did I make it too easy to take me for granted? Or maybe, I just never taught her what betrayal really meant, because I never thought she'd be the one delivering it. The truth is, I don't hate Emily. Not even close. But I'm grieving her, not the version of her sitting in bridal shops and posting engagement photos, but the little girl who once begged me not to leave her side during thunderstorms. The child who used to write "I love you, Daddy" on napkins and leave them in my lunch bag. The daughter who trusted me before the world taught her not to. That little girl would have never told a lie like this. She would have asked questions. She would have listened. And yet, I know that girl still exists. Buried under years of hurt and pride, but still there, waiting to come home. But if she ever does, I won't be the one pulling her through the door. She'll have to walk through it herself. And maybe that's the hardest part of being a parent. Learning when to stop holding their hand. And start letting them live with the choices they made. People often ask, can you love someone and still let them go? I think the answer is yes. Because love without boundaries isn't love, it's servitude. And while I will always love my daughter, I refuse to abandon the values I built my life on just to keep peace that isn't real. I don't know if Emily and I will ever fully mend what's been broken. Maybe one day she'll knock on my door, not with excuses, but with honesty. Maybe she'll understand the pain she caused, not just to me, but to Rosa. To her mother's memory. To herself. And maybe, when that day comes, we'll sit together again. As father and daughter. As truth-tellers. As people who have hurt and been hurt, but chose to face it, not bury it. But until then. This is where the story pauses. I didn't share this for revenge. I shared it because I know I'm not alone. Maybe you've been falsely accused. Maybe you've had to watch someone you love lose their way. Or maybe you've been Emily, and you're carrying a guilt you haven't spoken out loud yet. Whatever the case, I hope this story reminds you of this. A single lie can change everything. But a single moment of truth can begin to heal it. Folded hands emoji. If this story moved you in any way, please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, or your own story. Thumbs up emoji. Don't forget to like the video if it resonated with you. Bell emoji. And if you'd like more true, emotional stories like this one, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We have more to share, and we'd be honored to have you with us. Thank you for watching.